Hipaa data sync. In this particular video, we're going to be taking a look at some really interesting stuff with regards to Hipaa and bringing in data from different data sources. So we're going to be looking at Bluetooth devices and bringing that into a mobile, tablet, as well as a desktop portal, web portal, etc., and then integrating with EMR, EHR systems and doing this in a Hipaa secure and private way. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so the very first thing we want to cover is a concept that we refer to as a data sync within a glucose reader application. So this particular application has a web portal that is used for the actual patient, for the doctor or the healthcare provider, as well as supporters. And the patient can update their data using their mobile device. So we'll show some of the screenshots of that in just a moment. But here you can see when they're in the portal, they can actually bring in data, and you can see they can have multiple different devices. So different meter numbers and then records imported. They can restore or delete as well. Now, whenever a healthcare provider is logged in, they can also see that data is ready to be brought in and for who it is associated with. And then they can assign that data if they say no to a particular patient if it's not already registered based on the meter number. So this is kind of cool too. So once the data is brought in, then they can see it in this really nice visual presentation model. They can add notes, they can provide details. And then here we're taking a look at the actual mobile application. So I'm going to change the screen size here so you can hopefully see this a little bit better. And anyway, the point is that basically this particular mobile application, let me actually just zoom it in a little bit. Okay, hopefully that's helpful to be able to see it. But anyway, for the user, they can actually go in and look at these different screens, including their data sync. This is just showing their overall data. And you can just see some examples here of what their data looks like in the system. But they can actually get down to the individual data item level and the particular reading. And so they could go make changes to a particular reading. So they could get rid of it if it's a bad data point. They could see more details about that data point. They can also do their sync from here. So this allows them to bring a Bluetooth enabled device within range of their mobile device. And they can run a sync to pull the data off of, in this case, a glucose meter, bring it into the mobile device, and the mobile device is going to securely send it up to the cloud and bring it into their dashboard so that they can view that. Now, we also have the ability to bring in data using a USB device as well. So they can transfer via Bluetooth or USB. And this particular data allows them to log in, or this particular data sync model allows them to log into a application that's on a Mac or a PC and will allow them to authenticate and then sync their device. So you can see kind of the steps here. So now they've synced their data into this application, and it's going to push the data into the portal for them. Now, there is the potential that there can be an issue, and so we can also kind of show what that would look like as well, and kind of how they can go through those different kind of problem-solving steps. So then finally, if they're using a new device, what does that look like as well? And then basically, this is if we're in a doctor's office or a care a covered entity, a healthcare provider, and they're actually running the sync for a patient. So we can have a doctor's office that asks their patients to literally bring their glucose meter with them. They plug it in. Maybe they're in a remote location. There aren't very, ideal kind of scenarios for accessing the internet. Maybe the mobile devices aren't very great in that region, etc. This was actually used in some pretty remote locations in Africa to help people with insulin resistance and glucose problems, using this kind of doctor version of the application, which is really cool. So anyway, long story short, then once the data is synced to the portal, then both the doctor and the patient can access it, whether it's the doctor with a USB device that's taking their glucose meter and uploading, the patient, or using a mobile device, a tablet, etc., to use Bluetooth. These are all some really nice options for the end user to be able to get their data into the cloud using this secure data sync. Now, we go into a lot of detail in other videos about the dashboard views and some of the detailed views that are possible and notifications, how once the data sync is successful, we can notify different related parties that respectively have the right authorization to see those notifications, and just generally making a really great use of this data once we have it. But kind of the key takeaway is that we can truly work with any type of device to bring data in, and we can do this in a secure way. Okay, let's take a look at another example now. Okay, so this particular application is really interesting. So for this particular client, they have several different devices that we've built, as well as an administrative interface, a integration platform, and a interface for the actual kind of surgical techs that are working with this platform as well. So you kind of have multiple different roles and multiple different systems interacting with each other seamlessly. Now, this particular application is for a surge tech primarily during a surgery. They're going to either prep for a new case or find an existing case. And then they're going to, from scanning the patient's identifier information, they're going to get data to come in from the EMR EHR system. And then that's going to tell them about the surgery that's coming up. Then they're going to use this visual indicator to be able to select what part of the body they're going to be doing this kind of surgery on. And you can see that they're going to be able to select those surgical sites. And then they can essentially build out a surgical plan and then scan items in and out during the surgery. So they're going to be using a Bluetooth scanning device to then basically interact with this very respective of the skeletal system, kind of zooming in and out, and these different surgical site locations that the different facilities have built. So they have an administrative UI where they can build out these different surgical sites and regions that you can see here. And then as they scan items in, they're recognized, and the surge tech can drag them to the appropriate location. So then once they're in the location, they can manage the state of those items. So is it discarded, broken, implanted? Is it a multiple region item? And so you can see if it has a multiple region, then they can select where it's going to apply to. So it's applying to all of these 4 regions in this case. And then you can see visually it has an indicator showing there is an active item in a region. And in this case, it's just one item, but it's active across 4 regions. And so then we can discard the item, and you can see all of the discarded items. So those can be restored if we need to, and put back onto a region, for example. And then you can drill into a region. If it has multiple items, you can see all of the items that are shown in that region. And so again, you can indicate whether it's been implanted or if the item has been discarded, etc. Now, really the idea here is that we want to be able to make sure that during surgery, the items that don't need to stay in the patient get removed, and that the appropriate steps are completed using a visual kind of indicator and basically an inventory system during the surgery. Now, this is something that may seem relatively simple, but actually, as it turns out, there is a multi-billion, I think it's over $30 billion a year industry related to folks who are getting sued, different hospital groups, surgical groups, etc., because of malpractice. Essentially, leaving items in is one example of that during a surgery, like a clamp or possibly a swab, etc. And of course, unfortunately, that can create some pretty serious, kind of negative repercussions, right? So ultimately, here you can just see some other examples of kind of ways that we're interacting with the UI. And then once the particular case is completed, we can then export the notes. We can see all of the detailed steps that were completed, all of the detailed kind of nuances. And then this is transmitted to the EMR system of choice. Now, this integration to the EMR system uses a really robust integration platform. This platform in this case is called Clarity Connect. It's our integration platform that we've built at Clarity. It works seamlessly with EMR, EHR, and pharmacy, among other applications. Also works with standard ERP systems, CRMs, etc. And so ultimately, the takeaway here is that this particular application allows these surge techs to do their job really well, not have to kind of gather all this information manually. They can digitally pull it by scanning the patient's information. That pulls in from the EMR EHR system. And this is basically a similar version. It's just for a mobile application. And you can see that someone can basically put their information in. They can scan in the patient's information. And then they can use this mobile application to bring in the devices. And this is just kind of a simple inventory application that they can use. So they can make sure that they're going to do essentially a pick and pack or prep for the surgery. So they're going to be picking the items that are needed for this particular surgery. So then that ends up giving them kind of a manifest of the items that can be used to help organize and prep for the surgery. And then finally, once that's done, they can then bring that into this device during the surgery. So this is just one example of how we can do something robust like this with the data sync. You can imagine, I'm sure, that the different scenarios that we can execute on are really endless. There are a lot of kind of on-premise, like in-person lab testing, being able to integrate with different types of trials and those type of things, being able to work in a care facility and use a tablet or a kiosk application, and then being able to seamlessly integrate across the different systems, whether it's Bluetooth devices, whether it's EMR, EHR systems, ERP systems, pharmacy applications, web portals, lab results, being able to bring all of these in securely in a Hipaa secure and private way is absolutely critical. And we certainly are welcome you to reach out if you have any questions or would like to find out more. Thanks for making it to the end of this video. If you would, we encourage you to consider the opportunity to take advantage of our complimentary discovery process. If you're really interested in getting more information about this particular topic, that is a great way to, in a no hassle, kind of low key way, get to interact with experts within this field. And our commitment to you, if you decide to engage our team for a complimentary discovery or just a complimentary strategy and discussion, is that we will absolutely point you in a positive direction, help you kind of accelerate on your path, even if there's not a good fit for us to directly work together. We have a lot of resources and a lot of experience in this area of focus, and we just encourage you to take advantage of that if you're seriously looking in this space. If there is a good fit, of course, we'll also present you with great options that you can consider for how we might work together. And either way, we certainly appreciate you taking a look at this video. We encourage you, if you think this was valuable, to hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more of these videos, go ahead and hit subscribe. And we will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.